Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they live their lives by default instead of by design. Days roll into weeks, weeks into months, and before they know it, years have passed with little to show for it. Not because they didn't dream, but because they never decided. You see, life doesn't change by accident. It changes the moment you make a firm, intelligent decision and back it up with consistent action. Now imagine this. What if the next 90 days were not just another stretch of time, but a turning point? What if you treated the next 90 days as a personal season of growth? A season where excuses are retired and discipline takes their place. 90 days may not sound like much, but it's long enough to change your habits, reshape your thinking, and redefine your standards, and short enough that you can't hide behind someday. Here's the truth most people overlook. Success is not some mysterious force reserved for the lucky. It is the predictable result of daily choices. What you do consistently matters far more than what you do occasionally. A simple plan, followed every day, will outperform a brilliant idea ignored for years. And that's where a 90-day plan becomes powerful. It gives structure to ambition and direction to effort. If you don't design your future, someone else will. And chances are, they won't design it in your favor. The cost of staying the same is far greater than the discomfort of change. Discipline may weigh ounces, but regret weighs tons. The next 90 days can either be a repeat of the last 90 or the foundation for a completely new life. So the question is not whether change is possible. The question is whether you are willing to take control of the next 90 days and prove to yourself that your life responds when you do. Life changes when decisions change, because every result you see in your life today can be traced back to a decision you once made or a decision you avoided making. Where you live, how you earn, how you think, how you feel about yourself, and what you believe is possible all came from choices, not chances. Many people hope for improvement. They wish for progress. They wait for motivation. But hope is not a strategy and wishing is not a plan. Nothing truly shifts until a decision is made that is strong enough to interrupt old patterns and demand new behavior. A decision is not a preference, and it is not an opinion. A preference says, I would like things to be better. A decision says, this changes now. Most people drift through life because they never draw a clear line between where they are and where they refuse to stay. They say things like, I'll try, I'll see, or maybe someday, and life hears that uncertainty and responds with more of the same. Weak decisions produce weak results. Strong decisions, even uncomfortable ones, create movement. Every major turning point in a person's life begins with a moment of clarity followed by commitment. It is the moment someone says, enough. Enough excuses, enough delay, enough settling. That moment does not require money, connections, or perfect conditions. It requires honesty and courage. Honesty to admit that the current results are not acceptable, and courage to accept responsibility for changing them. When responsibility replaces blame, power returns to the individual. Many people confuse decision with emotion. They wait to feel inspired before they decide, But emotion is unreliable. Emotion comes and goes. Decision is a settled conclusion. It is choosing a direction, even when feelings fluctuate. When a person decides to change their health, their finances, their mindset, or their habits, the world does not instantly rearrange itself. Resistance appears. Old routines fight back. Comfort argues for staying the same. That is when the true weight of a decision is tested. A real decision alters behavior. If behavior does not change, the decision was only verbal. Saying, "I've decided," means nothing unless actions follow. Life responds to action, not intention. When decisions change, schedules change, priorities change, conversations change. What you tolerate changes. What you say no to becomes just as important as what you say yes to. And slowly, almost quietly, life begins to shift in response to those new standards. Indecision is more damaging than a wrong decision because it keeps a person stuck. A wrong decision teaches lessons and builds experience, but indecision creates stagnation. Stagnation slowly drains confidence, energy, and belief. People who live in indecision often blame circumstances, but circumstances rarely change until decisions do. Waiting for clarity often means waiting forever. Clarity usually comes after movement, not before it. When someone decides to grow, they begin to see time differently. Time stops being something to kill and becomes something to invest. The same 24 hours that once disappeared now become valuable. Small choices gain importance because the person understands that daily decisions compound. What you decide to read, who you decide to listen to, how you decide to respond to challenges. These are not minor details. They are the building blocks of a new direction. Life does not demand that decisions be dramatic, only that they be firm. A quiet decision, repeated daily, can outperform a loud declaration made once and forgotten. Deciding to improve one habit, one discipline, one skill can start a chain reaction. Better habits lead to better performance. Better performance leads to better results. Better results reinforce belief. Belief strengthens commitment. This is how momentum is born. Many people underestimate how powerful it is to decide who they are becoming. When a person decides, "I am the kind of person who follows through," behavior begins to align with identity. Decisions shape identity, and identity shapes behavior. When identity changes, effort feels different. Discipline no longer feels like punishment. It feels like alignment. The struggle decreases not because the work disappears, but because the internal conflict ends. Life will always present challenges, but challenges feel different when a decision has been made. Instead of asking, "Can I do this?" the question becomes, "How do I do this?" That shift alone changes everything. One question keeps you stuck. The other moves you forward. Decisions eliminate options that drain energy and narrow focus toward progress. The moment a person truly decides to change, the future quietly begins to reorganize itself around that choice through new actions, new standards, new influences, and new results that were never available before the decision was made. The power of a defined time frame lies in its ability to turn vague intention into focused action. When time is undefined, effort becomes casual and commitment becomes optional. People say they want to change, grow, improve, or succeed. But without a clear window of time, those desires float without direction. An undefined future invites procrastination because the mind believes there is always more time. A defined time frame, on the other hand, creates urgency, and urgency sharpens behavior. Time frames give structure to ambition. Without structure, ambition turns into frustration. When someone says, "I'll work on myself someday," the brain treats that goal as non-essential. Someday has no pressure, no deadline, no demand. But when someone says, "For the next 90 days, this is my focus," the mind shifts into execution mode. Energy becomes concentrated. Distractions become visible. Choices become clearer. A defined period forces prioritization, and prioritization is where progress begins. Human nature responds to deadlines. Students study harder when exams are scheduled. Professionals perform better when targets are set. Athletes train with intensity when competition dates are fixed. The same principle applies to personal growth. When growth is tied to a specific time frame, effort increases because the endpoint is visible. You can measure progress. You can feel momentum. You can evaluate results. Without a time frame, there is no scoreboard. And without a scoreboard, there is no urgency to improve. A defined time frame also reduces overwhelm. Many people avoid change because the idea of forever feels heavy. Changing your life sounds intimidating if you imagine it as a permanent struggle. But committing to a short, defined window feels manageable. Anyone can give focused effort for 30, 60, or 90 days. The mind can accept that challenge. It feels temporary, achievable, and realistic. And once momentum is built within that window, what once felt impossible begins to feel normal. Focus thrives inside boundaries. When time is limited, attention improves. You stop trying to fix everything at once and start working on what matters most. A defined time frame forces you to ask better questions. What habits matter most right now? What actions produce the greatest return? What distractions must be removed? Without time limits, people collect goals. With time limits, people execute plans. Defined time frames also create accountability, even when no one else is watching. When you set a clear period for action, you create an internal agreement with yourself. Breaking that agreement has a cost. Keeping it builds trust. Self-trust is one of the most valuable assets a person can develop. Every time you honor a commitment within a time frame, your confidence grows. You begin to believe that when you say something, you follow through. There is also power in knowing that effort has an end point. It allows intensity without burnout. People burn out not because they work hard, but because they work hard without clarity or closure. A defined time frame says, push here, rest later. It creates rhythm. Seasons of intensity followed by reflection and adjustment. This rhythm is how sustainable growth is built. When time is defined, excuses lose strength. It becomes harder to justify delay when the clock is visible. You become more aware of how you use your hours. Wasted time becomes uncomfortable. Comfort becomes costly. Even small pockets of time gain value. 10 minutes no longer feels insignificant when you understand how quickly days pass inside a limited window. Defined time frames also encourage evaluation and learning. At the end of a set period, you can look back and ask meaningful questions. What worked? What didn't? What habits stuck? What needs refinement? Growth becomes a process instead of a guess. Without time frames, people repeat the same mistakes because they never pause to review. With time frames, improvement becomes intentional. Another hidden power of a defined time frame is that it trains decisiveness. When time is limited, decisions must be made. Overthinking becomes impractical. You learn to act, adjust, and move forward. This builds confidence in your ability to handle uncertainty. Life rarely gives perfect conditions, but defined time frames teach you to work with what you have instead of waiting for what you want. Time frames transform identity as well. When someone commits to disciplined action for a set period, they begin to see themselves differently. They are no longer someone who tries. They are someone who commits. That shift in self-image is subtle, but powerful. It changes how challenges are perceived and how setbacks are handled. A setback inside a defined period is no longer a reason to quit. It is simply part of the process. Progress loves clarity, and clarity is born from limits. When time is unlimited, effort becomes lazy. When time is defined, effort becomes intentional. This is why short, focused seasons of discipline often produce more growth than years of unfocused effort. The clock does not limit potential, it reveals it. A defined time frame turns the abstract idea of change into a practical experience that can be lived one day at a time, measured, adjusted, and strengthened through consistent action. Within a clear beginning and a clear end, 90 days is long enough to transform habits. Because habits are not built through intensity alone. They are built through repetition, consistency, and identity alignment over time. Most people either quit too early or set timelines so long that urgency disappears. 90 days sits in a powerful middle ground. It is short enough to stay mentally committed and long enough to allow new behaviors to move from effort to routine. Within this window, actions stop feeling forced and start feeling familiar. Habits begin as conscious choices. In the early days, every action requires intention. You have to remind yourself, push yourself, and sometimes argue with yourself. This is where most people give up because the discomfort feels like failure. But discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is changing. The first few weeks of a new habit are about breaking old patterns, not perfect execution. 90 days allows enough time for resistance to weaken. As repetition continues, the brain begins to adapt. Neural pathways strengthen around repeated behaviors. What once required effort begins to require less thought. This shift does not happen in a few days, and it rarely happens in a week. It happens through sustained exposure. 90 days provides the consistency needed for the brain to accept a new pattern as normal. This is when habits begin to stick, not because of willpower, but because the mind recognizes the behavior as part of daily life. Shorter timelines often fail because they do not allow identity to catch up with behavior. You can force yourself to act differently for a few days, but identity takes longer to shift. Identity is shaped by evidence, and evidence comes from repeated action. After weeks of showing up, following through, and staying consistent, the internal dialogue begins to change. You stop saying, "I'm trying," and start saying, "This is what I do." 90 days gives enough evidence for that shift to take place. Consistency also reveals truth. In the first few weeks, motivation can mask flaws. Energy is high. Excitement carries effort. But as days pass, motivation fades and reality appears. Weak systems break. Poor planning shows itself. 90 days exposes what works and what doesn't. This is valuable because real habits are built on systems, not emotion. The longer time frame allows adjustment instead of abandonment. Another reason 90 days works is because it allows space for setbacks without collapse. No habit is built in a straight line. There will be missed days, low energy, distractions, and mistakes. Short challenges often fail because one mistake feels like the end. But within a 90-day window, a bad day is just a small data point, not a defining moment. You learn to recover, and recovery is a habit itself. Time also creates emotional distance from old patterns. Old habits are often tied to identity, comfort, and emotion. Breaking them requires more than logic. It requires living long enough without them to realize you do not need them. After weeks of choosing differently, the emotional attachment begins to loosen. What once felt necessary begins to feel optional. 90 days allows that emotional shift to occur. The length of 90 days also encourages patience with progress. People often quit because results are not immediate. But meaningful change is rarely instant. 90 days teaches delayed gratification. You learn to work without applause, to act without validation, and to trust the process. This builds mental strength. When results do appear, they feel earned, not accidental. Habits built over 90 days also tend to integrate into lifestyle rather than remain isolated tasks. At first, a new habit feels like an interruption. Over time, it finds its place. Sleep patterns adjust. Schedules shift. Priorities reorganize. By the end of 90 days, the habit is no longer something you squeeze in. It becomes something you plan around. This is the difference between temporary effort and lasting change. Another powerful aspect of 90 days is that it allows you to see compound effects. Small actions may seem insignificant day to day, but over weeks they stack. Energy improves, confidence grows, focus sharpens. You begin to feel different before you even see dramatic results. That feeling becomes reinforcing. The habit starts rewarding you internally, which increases the likelihood of continuation. 90 days also creates a psychological finish line. Knowing there is a defined period encourages commitment. You are not promising perfection forever. You are committing to consistency for a season. This makes discipline feel achievable. And once you reach the end, you often realize that stopping would cost more than continuing. What once felt hard now feels normal. By the time 90 days pass, the habit has been practiced enough times, adjusted enough times, and reinforced enough times that returning to the old way feels uncomfortable, and continuing forward feels natural. Not because discipline increased, but because the habit has become part of who you are and how you live your life. Drifting is one of the most dangerous conditions a person can live in. because it feels harmless while quietly stealing direction, urgency, and purpose. When there is no clear plan, life does not stand still. It slowly moves you away from intentional growth. Days are filled, but not directed. Effort is spent, but not invested. The danger is not failure in a dramatic sense. The danger is ending up somewhere you never consciously chose. Most people do not wake up and decide to live an average or unfulfilled life. They arrive there through drifting. Drifting happens when choices are made based on convenience instead of vision, comfort instead of growth, and reaction instead of intention. Without a plan, external forces take control. Circumstances dictate actions. Emotions dictate priorities. Other people's expectations begin to shape decisions. Over time, personal direction fades. When a person drifts, time becomes deceptive. Because nothing feels urgently wrong, there is no pressure to change. Bills get paid, routines continue. Life appears stable, but underneath that stability is stagnation. Growth stops, learning slows, and ambition weakens. Drifting is dangerous precisely because it does not feel dangerous. It disguises itself as normal life. A plan gives life edges. It creates boundaries and direction. Without those edges, energy spreads thin. People stay busy but not productive. Activity replaces progress. Motion replaces movement. Drifting creates the illusion of effort without the reward of results. People exhaust themselves and still feel behind because effort without direction multiplies frustration. One of the greatest dangers of drifting is that standards slowly lower. What once felt unacceptable becomes tolerable. What once felt temporary becomes permanent. A person begins to accept less from themselves than from life. This lowering of standards rarely happens suddenly. It happens through small compromises repeated over time. Without a plan to anchor standards, compromise becomes normal. Drifting also weakens decision-making. When there is no clear destination, every option looks equal. This leads to hesitation, overthinking, and second guessing. Decisions feel heavy because there is no framework to guide them. A plan simplifies decisions. It answers the question of what matters now. Without it, mental energy is wasted on choices that do not move life forward. Another danger of drifting is the loss of self-trust. When days pass without progress, confidence erodes. People begin to doubt their ability to follow through, not because they are incapable, but because they are unfocused. They confuse lack of direction with lack of ability. This misunderstanding damages belief, and belief is essential for growth. Drifting also invites distraction. Without a plan, distractions become default activities. Social media, entertainment, and business fill the empty space where intention should be. Distraction feels productive because it consumes time, but it produces nothing. Over time, the habit of distraction becomes stronger than the habit of discipline, making change feel harder than it needs to be. The danger of drifting is not just personal, it is cumulative. One undirected day leads to another. Weeks pass quickly, months disappear. Eventually, people look back and feel surprised by how much time is gone and how little has changed. Regret often comes not from what was done, but from what was never deliberately pursued. A plan does not guarantee success, but drifting guarantees randomness. Randomness may occasionally produce positive outcomes, but it cannot be relied upon. A person who drifts is always reacting, never leading. They wait for motivation, opportunity, or clarity instead of creating it. Over time, this reactive posture becomes a habit, and habits shape destiny. Another hidden danger is that drifting makes people vulnerable to other people's agendas. When you do not decide where you are going, you become available for wherever others want you to go. Your time, energy, and potential are spent building someone else's plan. This may feel safe, but it often leads to quiet dissatisfaction because deep down, people know they were meant to choose their own direction. Drifting also dulls awareness. Without a plan, reflection disappears. There is no pause to ask whether life is improving or declining. Everything blends together. Days feel shorter. Purpose feels distant. This numbness is one of the most dangerous effects because it silences the internal signals that call for change. A plan brings consciousness back into daily life. It forces awareness. It asks for intention. It demands choices. Without it, life runs on autopilot. Autopilot may keep things running, but it will never take you somewhere new. The true danger of drifting is not that life becomes difficult, but that it becomes acceptable. And acceptable is often the enemy of extraordinary, because it convinces a person to settle instead of decide, to float instead of steer, and to arrive at a future they never intentionally chose, but slowly slid into through days. Without direction, discipline is the bridge between goals and results, because intention alone has never built anything lasting. Goals are ideas, visions, hopes for a better future, but results are physical evidence that action has been taken consistently over time. Between those 2 points lies discipline. Without it, goals remain wishes. With it, even modest goals can turn into extraordinary outcomes. Discipline is what carries a decision forward long after excitement fades. Most people overestimate motivation and underestimate discipline. Motivation is emotional, unpredictable, and temporary. It comes in waves and disappears under pressure. Discipline is different. Discipline is a practiced commitment to act regardless of mood, circumstances, or comfort. It is choosing to do what matters, even when it feels inconvenient. This is why discipline, not motivation, determines results. Goals do not require strength, courage, or sacrifice to set. Anyone can imagine a better future. Discipline is what makes that future real. It shows up in the daily routines no one applauds, in the small choices no one notices, and in the repeated actions that feel ordinary but produce extraordinary change over time. Discipline is not dramatic. It is dependable. One of the greatest misunderstandings about discipline is that it is harsh or restrictive. In reality, discipline creates freedom. A disciplined approach to time creates freedom from stress. Discipline with money creates freedom from fear. Discipline with health creates freedom in energy and movement. What feels like restriction in the moment becomes expansion in the long run. The undisciplined life feels free today, but pays heavily tomorrow. Discipline also simplifies life. When standards are clear, decisions become easier. You no longer debate whether to act, you simply act. You no longer rely on willpower every day because habits take over. Discipline removes negotiation from behavior. It replaces internal arguments with automatic execution. This reduction in mental friction preserves energy for progress. The bridge metaphor is important because discipline connects two worlds that otherwise remain separate. On one side is potential. On the other side is performance. Many people live their entire lives on the potential side, believing that talent, intelligence, or desire should be enough. Discipline is the only structure strong enough to carry potential into reality. Without it, potential collapses under pressure. Discipline also builds trust with oneself. Every time a person follows through on a commitment, self-respect grows. Confidence is not built by positive thinking. It is built by kept promises. Discipline turns words into proof. Over time, this proof reshapes identity. A disciplined person begins to see themselves as reliable, capable, and resilient, not because someone told them so, but because their actions confirm it. Another powerful aspect of discipline is that it compounds. One disciplined action makes the next one easier. Momentum builds quietly. What once required effort becomes routine. This compounding effect is why discipline often looks small at first and massive later. Results rarely appear immediately, but they always appear eventually. Discipline delays reward but multiplies it. Discipline also protects progress. Life will always present distractions, setbacks, and temptations. Discipline acts as a filter. It keeps a person aligned with long-term goals instead of short-term comfort. Without discipline, every obstacle feels like a reason to quit. With discipline, obstacles become expected parts of the process. The difference is not strength, it is structure. Many people fear discipline because they associate it with punishment. But discipline is not about self-denial, it is about self-direction. It is choosing what you want most over what you want now. It is understanding that every choice has a cost and deciding to pay the cost that leads to growth instead of regret. Discipline is not something you lose when life gets hard. It is something you rely on when life gets hard. Discipline also creates consistency, and consistency is what results respond to. Results do not care about intentions, excuses, or effort on good days. Results respond to patterns. Discipline creates those patterns. It ensures that progress continues, even when enthusiasm disappears. This is why disciplined people succeed more often. Not because they are better, but because they are steadier. The bridge between goals and results must be crossed daily. There is no single moment where discipline is no longer required. Each day presents a choice to either reinforce the bridge or weaken it. Each action either strengthens alignment or increases distance. Discipline is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice that turns vision into reality through consistent action that refuses to wait for perfect conditions or perfect feelings. Small daily actions create massive outcomes because life itself operates on accumulation, not sudden transformation. People often look for breakthroughs, big moves, and dramatic changes, but lasting success is usually the result of simple actions repeated over time. What you do once may not matter much, but what you do every day shapes who you become. The power is not in the size of the action. It is in its consistency. Most people underestimate small actions because they do not produce immediate results. A single workout does not transform a body. One page of reading does not make someone knowledgeable. One disciplined choice does not change a life. Because the impact is not instantly visible, the action feels insignificant. But significance is revealed over time. Small actions work quietly, below the surface, building momentum long before results become obvious. Daily actions shape habits, and habits shape outcomes. Each small choice is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. Skipping one discipline may seem harmless, just as practicing one discipline may seem pointless. But when choices repeat, they begin to define patterns. Patterns determine direction. Direction determines destination. This is how ordinary actions produce extraordinary results. Small daily actions also lower resistance. Big goals can feel overwhelming and trigger avoidance. Small actions feel manageable. Anyone can take a small step. The mind accepts it. Consistency becomes easier because the effort feels reasonable. Over time, these small actions stack, creating a level of progress that large, occasional efforts rarely achieve. Another reason small actions are powerful is because they create identity change. When you act in a certain way daily, even in small ways, you begin to see yourself differently. A person who reads 10 minutes a day begins to identify as a learner. A person who writes a few lines daily begins to see themselves as a writer. Identity reinforces behavior. Once identity shifts, effort feels natural instead of forced. Small actions also create confidence. Confidence is not built by thinking, it is built by doing. Each completed action sends a signal to the mind that you can be trusted. This trust compounds. As confidence grows, the size of actions can increase. What started small often leads to greater challenges being embraced willingly. Consistency in small actions also builds discipline without burnout. Large efforts demand large recovery. Small efforts are sustainable. Sustainability is the key to long-term growth. Many people burn out because they try to change everything at once. Small actions respect human energy and allow progress without collapse. Over time, stamina increases naturally. Small daily actions also reveal the law of compound effect. Just as money compounds with interest, effort compounds with time. Early on, progress feels slow. This is where most people quit. They do not realize they are standing at the base of the curve, but if they persist, momentum builds. Results accelerate. What once felt invisible suddenly becomes undeniable. Another hidden benefit of small actions is that they increase awareness. Daily attention to improvement sharpens observation. You notice what works and what does not. You adjust naturally. Growth becomes intelligent instead of random. Without daily action, feedback disappears. Without feedback, improvement stalls. Small actions also protect against regret. When you act daily, even in modest ways, you eliminate the feeling of wasted time. You know you are moving forward. This sense of progress fuels motivation. Motivation becomes the result of action, not the cause of it. Many people believe they need more time, more resources, or more confidence to start. Small daily actions remove these excuses. You do not need ideal conditions to take a small step. You only need willingness. and willingness grows through action. Small actions also build resilience. Missing one day does not destroy progress. You simply return the next day. This flexibility makes consistency realistic. Progress becomes about direction, not perfection. Over time, small daily actions accumulate into skills, habits, relationships, and opportunities that seem impressive from the outside, but were built quietly on the inside. What looks like overnight success is usually the result of countless small actions performed consistently when no one was watching, gradually shaping outcomes that feel massive only because the process that created them was patient, persistent, and ordinary enough to be sustained day after day. Responsibility is the foundation of personal growth, because nothing meaningful improves until someone decides to own their life completely. Responsibility is not about blame or guilt, it is about power. The moment a person accepts responsibility for their results, they regain control over their direction. As long as outcomes are blamed on circumstances, people, luck, or timing, growth remains out of reach. Blame weakens initiative, but responsibility strengthens it. Many people misunderstand responsibility and see it as pressure or burden. In reality, responsibility is freedom. When you accept that your choices shape your life, you no longer have to wait for permission, approval, or rescue. You stop being a victim of conditions and become a participant in your own progress. Growth begins the moment excuses end. Personal growth demands an honest look at reality. Responsibility allows that honesty. It says, "This is where I am, and this is my role in being here." That statement is not meant to judge, it is meant to clarify. Without clarity, improvement becomes guesswork. With clarity, action becomes precise. Responsibility removes confusion and replaces it with direction. Avoiding responsibility may feel comfortable in the short term, but it quietly erodes confidence. When people consistently shift responsibility away from themselves, they also shift power away. Over time, they begin to feel helpless, even when they are capable. This helplessness is not caused by lack of ability, but by lack of ownership. Growth requires ownership, because growth requires action, and action requires belief in influence. Responsible individuals do not wait for perfect conditions. They understand that conditions rarely improve before effort begins. They work with what they have. They adapt. They adjust. They improve incrementally. Responsibility creates momentum because it focuses attention on what can be controlled rather than what cannot. Energy spent complaining is redirected toward building. Responsibility also sharpens discipline. When someone takes responsibility for their time, they become more intentional with it. When they take responsibility for their habits, they stop negotiating with them. When they take responsibility for their mindset, they stop feeding negative narratives. Responsibility cleans up internal dialogue and aligns behavior with goals. One of the most powerful shifts that responsibility creates is internal accountability. When no one is watching, responsibility still guides action. It creates an internal standard that does not depend on external pressure. This internal standard is the root of consistency. People who grow consistently are not driven by supervision. They are driven by self-expectation. Responsibility also strengthens resilience. When challenges appear, responsible people ask better questions. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What can I learn from this?" Or, "What can I do next?" These questions keep momentum alive. Growth is rarely smooth, and responsibility ensures that setbacks become lessons instead of stopping points. Another essential aspect of responsibility is that it removes entitlement. Growth does not respond to entitlement. The world does not reward what someone feels they deserve. It rewards what someone consistently earns. Responsibility aligns effort with expectation. It teaches patience, humility, and persistence, qualities that support long-term improvement. Responsibility also improves relationships. When individuals take responsibility for their communication, behavior, and reactions, conflict decreases. Growth is not only personal, it is relational. How a person handles responsibility affects how others trust, respect, and rely on them. Trust opens doors that talent alone cannot. Taking responsibility does not mean controlling everything. It means controlling your response to everything. This distinction is critical. Many things in life are outside personal control, but reaction, effort, attitude, and choice are always available. Responsibility focuses on these levers. This focus prevents emotional exhaustion caused by fighting what cannot be changed. Responsibility also builds self-respect. Every time a person acknowledges their role in their results and commits to improvement, self-respect grows. This respect fuels confidence, and confidence fuels action. Growth becomes self-reinforcing. The more responsibility is practiced, the easier it becomes to practice. Personal growth collapses without responsibility because growth demands effort, honesty, and persistence. These qualities cannot survive in an environment of excuses. Responsibility creates a solid foundation because it supports every other discipline. Without it, goals drift, plans fail, and motivation fades. With it, even slow progress becomes meaningful. When responsibility becomes a habit, life changes quietly but steadily. Decisions become intentional. Actions become aligned. Growth becomes inevitable, not because circumstances improved, but because ownership replaced avoidance and effort replaced explanation, allowing progress to take root and expand through consistent personal accountability. The cost of staying the same is often invisible at first, which is why so many people underestimate it. Change feels uncomfortable, risky, and demanding, while staying the same feels safe and familiar. But comfort has a hidden price. Every day that passes without growth quietly charges interest. The bill does not arrive immediately, but it always comes, usually in the form of regret, missed opportunity, or unrealized potential. Staying the same does not mean staying still. Life continues to move forward, whether a person grows or not. Skills either improve or become outdated. Health either strengthens or slowly declines. Mindsets either expand or become rigid. When growth stops, decline begins, even if it happens slowly. The danger is not dramatic failure, but gradual loss. One of the greatest costs of staying the same is the erosion of self-belief. When people know deep down that they are capable of more, but choose comfort instead, confidence weakens. Over time, this gap between potential and action creates internal conflict. People begin to doubt themselves, not because they lack ability, but because they repeatedly ignore it. This internal tension becomes emotional weight. Another cost is time. Time is the one resource that cannot be recovered. Every year spent avoiding change is a year that cannot be reclaimed. People often assume they will change later, but later is never guaranteed. Habits strengthen with time, making change harder, not easier. What is avoided today becomes heavier tomorrow. Staying the same also affects perspective. When routines never change, thinking becomes narrow. Exposure to new ideas decreases. Curiosity fades. Life becomes predictable. But predictability often dulls awareness. Without growth, days blend together. People lose their sense of progress, and progress is essential for fulfillment. There is also a cost in opportunity. Opportunities often appear disguised as challenges that require growth. When a person is unwilling to change, they are unable to step into these opportunities. They watch others advance and assume luck is involved, without recognizing the preparation behind it. Staying the same closes doors before they even appear. The emotional cost of staying the same can be heavy. Quiet dissatisfaction builds when effort is avoided and potential is ignored. This dissatisfaction may not explode, but it lingers. It shows up as frustration, boredom, or resentment. People may not know exactly what is wrong, but they feel that something is missing. That missing element is often growth. Staying the same also affects future options. Choices narrow when skills do not develop. Flexibility decreases. Dependence increases. What once felt comfortable becomes restrictive. The longer change is delayed, the fewer options remain. This loss of choice is one of the most painful costs because it limits freedom. Another hidden cost is the impact on identity. When someone stays the same for too long, they begin to identify with limitations instead of possibilities. They describe themselves using excuses rather than strengths. Identity solidifies around avoidance. Changing later requires not only new actions, but unlearning old self-perceptions, which is far more difficult. Staying the same also teaches others how to treat you. When you tolerate less from yourself, others often follow suit. Standards influence respect. Growth raises standards. Lack of growth lowers them. This affects relationships, careers, and personal influence. People may not consciously judge, but they respond to demonstrated effort and self-respect. The cost of staying the same is also cumulative. 1 year of avoidance may seem insignificant. 5 years becomes noticeable. 10 years becomes painful. Looking back, people rarely regret the changes they made. They regret the chances they did not take and the effort they did not invest. Regret is expensive because it cannot be paid off with future effort. Staying the same also limits contribution. Growth is not only personal, it is relational. The more a person grows, the more they can offer others. Skills, wisdom, stability, and leadership all come from development. By staying the same, a person limits their ability to serve, support, and inspire. Change always demands a price, but that price is paid once. The cost of staying the same is paid every day. Growth may feel uncomfortable, but stagnation slowly drains energy, enthusiasm, and meaning. The discomfort of discipline is temporary, but the discomfort of regret can last a lifetime. When a person truly calculates the cost of staying the same, change stops feeling like a risk and starts feeling like a responsibility, because remaining unchanged slowly trades future strength for present comfort, exchanges long-term fulfillment for short-term ease, and replaces intentional living with passive acceptance of a life that could have been far more than it ever became. Focus is more powerful than motivation, because motivation is a feeling and focus is a discipline. Motivation rises and falls depending on mood, environment, and circumstances. Some days it appears strong, other days it disappears without warning. Focus, however, does not rely on emotion. It is a decision to direct attention and energy toward what matters most, regardless of how one feels. This is why people who rely on motivation struggle to stay consistent, while people who develop focus continue to progress even when enthusiasm fades. Motivation often comes after action, not before it. Many people wait to feel motivated before they begin, but focus allows them to begin without waiting. Focus says, "This is what matters now," and then it acts. When attention is clear, action follows. When attention is scattered, effort weakens. Focus eliminates hesitation by removing unnecessary options and distractions. In a world full of noise, focus has become rare and valuable. Distractions compete for attention constantly. Notifications, opinions, entertainment, and endless information pull the mind in multiple directions. Motivation struggles in this environment because it is easily drained. Focus, on the other hand, thrives on boundaries. It requires intentional limitation of input to protect output. People who grow consistently are not more motivated, they are more selective. Focus also simplifies effort. When energy is directed toward a small number of priorities, results improve. Trying to do everything leads to shallow progress. Doing fewer things well leads to meaningful growth. Focus concentrates effort, and concentrated effort produces depth. Depth is where skill, mastery, and confidence are built. Another advantage of focus is that it creates momentum. When attention stays on one direction long enough, progress becomes visible. Visible progress reinforces commitment. Motivation may fluctuate, but progress fuels persistence. Focus keeps effort aligned long enough for results to appear. Focus also protects against burnout. Burnout often comes from scattered effort rather than hard work. When attention is divided among too many tasks, mental fatigue increases. Focus reduces mental clutter. It allows full engagement with the task at hand. This engagement is energizing, not draining. Clarity restores energy. Motivation tends to be reactive. It responds to external stimuli like speeches, videos, or success stories. These sources can inspire temporarily, but the effect fades. Focus is proactive. It is self-directed. It does not require constant stimulation. Once focus is established, it carries effort forward without the need for repeated emotional boosts. Focus also strengthens discipline. When focus is clear, discipline becomes easier because decisions are fewer. You are not constantly choosing what to do next. You already know. This reduces decision fatigue and preserves willpower. Discipline becomes a natural extension of clarity. Another powerful aspect of focus is its effect on identity. Focused individuals begin to see themselves as committed and reliable. They trust their ability to stay aligned with their priorities. This self-trust reinforces behavior. Identity and focus support each other. The more focused a person becomes, the more they act in alignment with who they believe they are. Focus also improves quality. Whether in learning, work, or relationships, focused attention produces better outcomes. Multitasking reduces effectiveness. Focused effort increases accuracy, creativity, and impact. Over time, this quality compounds into reputation and opportunity. Motivation often seeks comfort. When discomfort appears, motivation weakens. Focus accepts discomfort as part of the process. It does not negotiate with resistance. It acknowledges it and continues. This acceptance builds resilience. Growth is rarely comfortable, and focus keeps effort steady through discomfort. Focus also creates resilience against failure. When attention is fixed on long-term direction, short-term setbacks lose power. Failure becomes information rather than identity. Focus keeps perspective intact. It reminds the individual why the effort matters, even when results are delayed. Another reason focus outperforms motivation is that focus is sustainable. Motivation demands renewal. Focus demands maintenance. Maintenance is easier than renewal. You do not need to feel excited every day to stay focused. You only need to remember what matters. Focus also encourages intentional living. It shifts behavior from reaction to direction. Instead of responding to every demand, focused individuals choose their responses. This sense of control reduces stress and increases satisfaction. Life feels purposeful rather than chaotic. Motivation may start the journey, but focus sustains it. Motivation may light the spark, but focus keeps the fire burning. Without focus, effort scatters and fades. With focus, effort aligns and strengthens, allowing consistent progress to continue regardless of emotional state or external circumstances, turning intention into action and action into lasting results through steady, directed attention over time. Designing your days instead of reacting to them is one of the most powerful shifts a person can make, because daily life is where destiny is quietly formed. Life does not change in dramatic moments alone. It changes in ordinary hours shaped by routine, choice, and attention. When days are lived reactively, life feels rushed, scattered, and controlled by external demands. When days are designed intentionally, life gains direction, calm, and purpose. Most people wake up already behind. They check messages, respond to demands, and move from task to task without ever deciding what truly matters that day. This reactive pattern gives the illusion of productivity, but often results in exhaustion without progress. Being busy is not the same as moving forward. Reaction consumes energy, while design directs it. Designing your day begins with awareness. It means recognizing that time will be spent whether you choose how or not. Every day offers a limited number of hours, and those hours will be used either intentionally or accidentally. When days are not designed, they are designed by default, by other people's priorities, interruptions, and urgencies. Reaction hands control away without resistance. Reactive living trains the mind to chase instead of lead. The loudest problem gets attention. The newest message feels urgent. The easiest task gets completed first. Over time, important goals are postponed because they rarely scream for attention. Designing your day reverses this pattern. It puts what matters most at the center instead of the edges. When days are designed, priorities are decided in advance. This removes stress from the moment. You no longer need to constantly decide what to do next because the direction is already set. Mental clarity increases. Decision fatigue decreases. Energy becomes available for meaningful work instead of constant adjustment. Design also creates space for discipline. Discipline struggles in chaos. When days are unstructured, discipline must fight against confusion, distraction, and fatigue. A designed day supports discipline by making good choices easier and poor choices harder. Environment and schedule work together to support growth. Designing your day does not mean rigid control. It means intentional flexibility. You decide where effort should go, knowing that adjustments may be necessary. The difference is that adjustments happen within a framework instead of replacing it. Reaction abandons structure. Design adapts within structure. One of the greatest benefits of designing your day is improved focus. When you know what the day is for, distractions lose power. You become more selective with attention. You stop saying yes to everything and start protecting what matters. Focused days produce focused results. Design also builds self-respect. When you honor your own plan, trust grows. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. This self-trust fuels confidence. Confidence makes future planning easier. A positive cycle begins. Reactive living often creates stress because it keeps the nervous system in constant response mode. There is always something demanding attention. Designing your day introduces rhythm. Certain times are reserved for effort, others for rest. This rhythm stabilizes energy and improves performance. Calm becomes possible even during busy seasons. Designing your day also reveals values. How time is used reflects what is truly important. When days are intentional, values become visible in action, not just words. This alignment reduces inner conflict. Life feels more honest. Another powerful aspect of design is that it allows progress to be measured. When days are structured around priorities, it becomes easier to see what is working and what is not. Improvement becomes deliberate instead of accidental. Growth becomes trackable. Designing days also protects long-term goals. Long-term goals are fragile in reactive environments. They are easily postponed because they are not urgent. Design days create space for what is important before urgency takes over. This consistency is what allows long-term goals to survive daily demands. Reaction teaches the mind that life happens to you. Design teaches the mind that life responds to you. This shift in perception changes everything. Responsibility increases. Engagement deepens. Life feels less overwhelming and more manageable. Design also improves recovery. When days are planned, rest is intentional, not accidental. Recovery is scheduled, not stolen. This prevents burnout and supports sustainability. Growth requires recovery just as much as effort. Designing your days does not require perfection. It requires intention. Even a loosely designed day is more powerful than a completely reactive one. Over time, intentional days stack. Weeks gain shape. Months gain direction. Life begins to reflect choices instead of circumstances. When you design your days, you stop living in response to yesterday's problems and start building tomorrow's results through deliberate action, conscious allocation of time, and intentional focus on what truly moves life forward rather than what merely demands attention in the moment. Becoming intentional about your future means refusing to let life be shaped by accident, habit, or convenience. It is the decision to move from passive existence to deliberate direction. Most people think about the future, worry about it, or hope for it, but very few intentionally design it. Hope without intention creates wishful thinking. Intention turns vision into something actionable and real. An unintentional future is usually a continuation of the past. When no clear direction is chosen, patterns repeat. The same habits, the same reactions, the same comfort zones quietly extend forward in time. Years pass, and people are surprised that little has changed. Not because change was impossible, but because it was never planned. Intention interrupts this cycle by forcing conscious choice. Being intentional begins with clarity. It requires asking difficult but necessary questions. What kind of person am I becoming? Where is my current direction leading me? Are my daily actions aligned with the life I want, or are they simply familiar? These questions create awareness, and awareness is the first step toward change. Without awareness, effort is scattered, and progress is accidental. Intentional living shifts focus from short-term comfort to long-term meaning. Many decisions feel small in the moment, but their impact compounds over time. Choosing comfort repeatedly shapes a future of limitation. Choosing growth repeatedly shapes a future of strength. Intention gives weight to these choices. It reminds you that today is not isolated, it is connected to tomorrow. When someone becomes intentional about their future, time takes on new value. Time is no longer something to fill or escape from. It becomes something to invest. Hours are treated as building blocks. Days are no longer random events, but opportunities to move closer to a defined direction. This mindset alone changes behavior without force. Intentionality also reduces regret. Regret often comes from realizing too late that life was lived on autopilot. When choices are made deliberately, even mistakes carry value. There is peace in knowing that effort was aligned with intention, even if outcomes were not perfect. Intentional people may fail, but they rarely feel lost. Another powerful effect of intentionality is improved decision making. When the future is clearly imagined, decisions become easier. You no longer ask, "What do I feel like doing?" You ask, "Does this move me toward who I want to become?" This filter simplifies choices and strengthens discipline. Many temptations lose their appeal when viewed through the lens of long-term direction. Intentionality also demands responsibility. You cannot design a future while blaming the past. Taking ownership of direction requires accepting that your choices matter. This responsibility may feel heavy at first, but it quickly becomes empowering. When you realize that your actions shape your path, effort feels meaningful rather than forced. Becoming intentional about your future also changes how you handle setbacks. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs to stop, you see them as adjustments to make. Intention provides resilience because it anchors effort to purpose. When purpose is clear, persistence becomes easier. You are not just working hard, you are working towards something that matters. Intentionality also influences identity. When you consistently act with purpose, you begin to see yourself as someone who leads their own life. This self-image strengthens confidence. Confidence then reinforces action. A powerful cycle forms where intention, action, and identity support each other. Many people avoid intentionality because it requires commitment. Choosing a direction means letting go of others. It means saying no. It means accepting that not every option can be explored. But without commitment, energy is divided and progress slows. Intention concentrates effort, and concentrated effort produces results. Being intentional does not mean knowing every detail of the future. It means choosing a direction and adjusting along the way. Life will always change, but intention keeps you oriented. It provides a compass even when the path is unclear. Without that compass, movement may still happen, but direction is uncertain. Intentionality also deepens satisfaction. Progress feels more rewarding when it is connected to purpose. Even small wins feel meaningful because they contribute to a larger vision. Life feels less chaotic and more coherent. Actions make sense in context. When a person becomes intentional about their future, they stop living reactively and start living deliberately. They stop waiting for clarity and begin creating it through action. The future stops being something that happens to them and becomes something they actively shape through daily choices guided by purpose, awareness, and commitment to becoming more than they were yesterday. Turning potential into performance is the true measure of personal growth, because potential alone has no value until it is expressed through action. Potential is invisible. It exists as possibility, talent, capacity, or promise, but the world never rewards what could be done, only what is done. Many people live their entire lives admired for what they might become, yet remembered for what they never completed. The gap between potential and performance is where most frustration lies. Potential feels comforting because it carries no risk. As long as something remains potential, it cannot fail. Performance, however, demands exposure. It requires effort, consistency, and the willingness to be judged by results. This is why so many people protect their potential instead of using it. They mistake preservation for progress, but unused potential slowly turns into regret. Performance begins where excuses end. It requires the acceptance that talent is only a starting point, not a guarantee. Natural ability without discipline creates illusion, not achievement. History is full of people with extraordinary ability who produced ordinary lives because they never converted capacity into consistent action. Performance does not ask how gifted you are. It asks how committed you are. Turning potential into performance requires structure. Raw ability needs direction. Energy needs focus. Ideas need execution. Without structure, potential leaks out through distraction, procrastination, and inconsistency. Structure does not limit creativity, it channels it. It gives potential a path to follow instead of allowing it to scatter. One of the greatest enemies of performance is waiting. Waiting for confidence, waiting for clarity, waiting for perfect conditions. Potential thrives in waiting because it feels productive without producing anything. Performance begins when action replaces preparation. Growth happens during execution, not rehearsal. Consistency is the currency of performance. Potential may appear quickly, but performance is built slowly. Showing up once proves nothing. Showing up repeatedly builds trust, skill, and credibility. Performance compounds. Each action builds on the last. Over time, effort becomes refined. What once felt difficult becomes efficient. Skill emerges not from thinking, but from doing. Turning potential into performance also requires tolerance for imperfection. Early performance is rarely impressive. Mistakes are unavoidable. Progress is uneven. Those who expect perfection stop early. Those who accept imperfection continue long enough to improve. Performance is shaped by repetition, not flawless execution. Another critical shift is moving from self-expression to service. Potential often focuses inward on personal ability. Performance focuses outward on contribution. When effort is tied to contribution, discipline strengthens. Purpose sharpens focus. Performance becomes meaningful, not just impressive. This meaning sustains effort through difficulty. Performance also builds confidence differently than potential ever could. Potential creates hope. Performance creates proof. Each completed task, each delivered result, strengthens belief. Confidence stops being imagined and becomes earned. This earned confidence fuels further action, creating a powerful upward cycle. Turning potential into performance demands accountability. Someone must measure output. This accountability may be internal or external, but it must exist. Without accountability, standards drift. With accountability, effort sharpens. Performance responds to expectations, not intentions. Another important element is patience. Performance unfolds over time. The results of today's effort may not appear immediately. Those who quit early often believe their potential was wasted, when in reality it was never tested long enough. Performance rewards persistence, not speed. Potential is common. Performance is rare. This is why performance stands out. The world is full of people with ideas, talent, and ability. It is short on people who consistently deliver. Becoming someone who performs changes how opportunities appear. Doors open not because of promise, but because of reliability. Turning potential into performance also reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who could and start seeing yourself as someone who does. This shift changes how you approach challenges. You rely less on motivation and more on systems. Less on hope and more on habit. The tragedy of unused potential is not that it disappears, but that it remains as a constant reminder of what might have been. Performance resolves that tension. It brings closure to intention by expressing it through action. When potential is finally expressed through consistent performance, life stops feeling stuck between dreams and reality and begins to reflect effort in visible form, proving that greatness is not reserved for those with the most talent, but for those who choose to turn what they have into disciplined action that produces results over time.